for our human species.
What do you mean by unhealthy?
As in, it diminishes quality of life, it harms others, it doesn't contribute to society in a meaningful way. It takes away.
Okay, so it's wrong because so your basis is that it's wrong that people have value if they contribute to society and don't cause disruption.
No, again, that is not what I said. That's a complete
literally
straw
what you
man.
said. You just know it's a still man of your position because you literally just said it's basis of whether they contribute to society and improve stuff and it makes it better.
That
So
is not what I said.
to be able to be consumed. And animals can also do that too, just like sniffer dogs, as other animals too. They can contribute as
I
well.
didn't say people need to contribute to society. I just said my point was unaliving. It diminishes society. It reduces quality of life. I never said anything about being productive. That was never in my vocabulary.
What if it doesn't reduce quality of life?
But it always does. That's why we decided as a society, as a collective, that unaliving is wrong.
No, not necessarily. For example, if I unalive in a war or battleground, and even in the case I unalive in society, what if I'm fine with it? I'm okay with it.
Again, that's your subjective experience. Sorry. Go on, sorry.
My life more happy. Is that okay then?
No, because it comes as a collective. What does society think as a whole?
Well, what if I disagree with society? Then you have a flaw in your argument. If I disagree with society and I don't care about that, then it's okay to me. And if it makes my quality of life better, then that's not always true that it hurts everyone.
Yeah, it's okay to you because you have the bodily autonomy to unalive someone, but society will hold you responsible.
You're missing the point is that what's the morally relevant trait between humans and animals? That's the main part. Going down this rabbit hole doesn't work. What's the morally relevant trait that makes it okay to do it to animals, but not humans or non-human animals?
Again, human conscious experience.
The human conscious experience. So again, what about the human conscious experience is so valuable? What is it about the conscious experience that a human can do that makes it so much that they shouldn't be unalived?
Right. So we can, what makes humans completely different from other animals is we can have abstract thought. We can imagine things that are not there, which is stuff that is completely unique to the human species. And I think that creates some superiority. You could call that speciesism, but it's true.
No, I mean, it is speciesism, number one, which, is just like racism, discriminating based on superficial factors that is immoral. But hold on one second. Guys, let's double tap the screen. If you want to be added in, double tap the screen. Let's reach 30,000 likes. Double tap the screen. Everyone put in all the effort, double tap. But also, on what you're saying, again, I brought the example that babies can't have abstract thought. Some people have mental disabilities that they can't have abstract thought. So that point is irrelevant. They can't have...
No, because it's about the capacity to deploy that consciousness.
Sorry, go on. Boy. Again, these people, they will never have the capacity. There's some people who will never have the capacity to be able to deploy the conscious thought the way you're characterizing it.
Yeah, but those are exceptions. They're not the rule. Those are...
Oh, okay.
No, wait. It's still a human conscious experience because they're a human having that conscious experience.
You clearly described this conscious experience as being abstract thought and all of these things in higher intelligence.
No, I said that was a unique trait to humans.
These people have the conscious experience of an animal because they're not able to develop as much as humans. So are you saying it's okay to unalive and eat them because their conscious experience is on par with that of animals?
No, because you're making conscious experience like stages. Like first you're born with a rat conscious experience and then you level up to lizard. That's not how it works. Babies or mentally disabled people have a diminished diminished conscious experience that's of a human, but it's not an animal conscious experience.
So you're just being speciesist based on genes.
I didn't say based on genes. I said based on human conscious experience. Isn't about genes.
I'm saying based on genes because I just acknowledged you. Some humans don't have the full human conscious experience and won't reach a level of intelligence of that. And you said it.
Intelligence does not correlate to consciousness or sentience.
No, absolutely does. It actually does correlate. The more intelligent a being, the more it is able to be more conscious of its surroundings. Which being aware is kind of the definition of consciousness baked in, although it's not fully understood. But yeah, no. It's been debunked. I've addressed your point. I don't know what else you want me to say, or what else I can say to you. I've said everything that I think I can. So yeah, everyone double tap the screen. Let's reach 30,000 likes. Double tap the screen. Double tap the screen, everyone. And also feel free to check out the YouTube for my other debates, and feel free to subscribe. What do you want to debate?
I didn't really want to debate. You could just kick me. I forgot that I was
Goodbye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Let's get some more people in there, guys. Double tap the screen, everyone. Double tap the screen. Let's get some more people in there. Appreciate the gifts. Thank you so much for being on the stream. Thank you so much. Hey, what you want to debate?
Hey, how's it going? I came to disagree on the God is imaginary.
Okay, do you believe in God?
Define what belief is.
Belief, as in belief. Sir, can you fix your background? There's something going on.
Okay, let me close the windows. Give me a second.
Yeah, close the window. But anyways, you said define belief. I guess belief is having a disposition into thinking something is factual or something is true, and it accurately describes the state of our world. It accurately is a factual thing. Factual. You're digging too deep into semantics. Something that's factual. Let me just say that. You believe.
Okay. Before saying anything, let me say that I am completely open-minded, and if you actually change my mind, I will actually believe in you. Okay, no ego stuff. Okay.
Sure. Okay, but yeah, belief. I mean, you don't know what belief is. Like, you just you assume that you know something.
The reason I ask the belief thing is if somebody told me that if you go down that road, you're gonna fall into a hole. I don't really believe it, right? But it can be true. But whatever, yeah, sure. I believe in God. Yes,
Yeah,
I know.
and belief is subjective. Belief is, as I said to the person, that they believe something is a fact. I don't know how to use the word belief without using it. It's such a basic word. We know what we mean when we say believe.
Okay, sure. Yes, I would say yes. I believe in God.
Okay, so what religion are you, may I ask?
I don't necessarily have a religion. I just open the Bible.
So what do you define as God? Thank you for the gift.
I will give you the fastest answer. I only really believe in God because of personal experience. There's no way I can prove He's real. There's no way I can prove He's real.
I can't prove He's real, and I don't believe there's a personal reason to believe. But regardless, okay, let's tangle with this. So you said based on personal experience or anecdotes is what you're saying. So what about your personal experience made you believe that a higher power existed? And it also depends, what do you even define as God? Like, what do you define as God? Some higher intelligence, or what do you?
Before giving the answer, let me tell you, there's absolutely no way that I can prove the existence of God. I believe in Him because of my own personal experience.
Well, then it's just battle of the anecdotes. It's just the anecdotes. Then let's get someone else in. Everyone, double tap the screen. Let's get some more people in it. Double tap the screen. Yeah. Hey, what do you want to debate?
Hello, so I'm Italian, so I can't really speak good English, but first of all, I just want to make a...
Can't be asked then. Sorry, I just can't be asked. I have to play Duolingo with different languages. I'm too tired for that. Hey, what do you want to debate?
Hey, how's it going, brother?
How old are you?
I'm 27.
Okay, what do you want to debate?
So let's debate your claim that God is imaginary.
Sure. Do you believe in God?
I do.
What's your evidence He exists?
Well, you're making the claim that God is imaginary. So, I mean, the burden of proof is on the claim that God is imaginary, right?
Sure. What religion are you?
I'm a Christian, non-denominational.
Okay, you believe in the Christian God. Okay, so the reason I don't believe is, of course, a lack of evidence. In fact, absence of evidence is, in fact, evidence of absence. Number two, we got the problem of just a few arguments, to say the least. The ones which I find most strongly and are the most strongest against God: problem of evil, problem of creation, problem of divine hiddenness, problem of perfection, within Scripture. But yeah,
Awesome.
which one?
I love all those. Let's just take it one by one. Which one do you want to go first?
We can go with the problem of evil if you want to go.
All right, the problem of evil. So what do you mean by evil exactly?
I guess we can define evil even if we go within. It's basically an internal critique, this one. So we can even define evil as something which is against something which is we ought not do, or an action which God does not will or is against God. Is that a good definition?
I mean that's a good definition, but I'm from the framework that God is imaginary, right? What do you mean by evil? From your worldview, what would you define as evil?
From God is imaginary is something which I believe is a bad act, as in something which is that we ought not do, and that is something which I find that we ought not do. Basically, that's why I believe it's a bad act. to
Do
me.
you believe evil is subjective?
Yeah, subjective, absolutely. I think even with God, it's subjective. But even if we go with your moral framework, because it's an internal inconsistency, it doesn't matter what I define as evil.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I'm down to just talk about your worldview for us to, measure it against reality. So if you think that evil is,
Before we're going with the problem of evil, though, do you not want to go into that?
well, I'm talking about evil, yeah. So
But it's internal critique, so it doesn't matter what I think. What do you define as evil? It's an internal critique of your religion. So
right, so my definition of evil is an objective morality, right? So it's different than
morality is a system of belief in that it's a fact. You believe your
correct.
moral statements are fact.
Correct. Yes, correct. I believe that. I mean, especially the great evils, right? Like, let's say,
What is an example of an evil act? What is the example?
racism, for example, is a classic.
Why is that an evil act?
So it's evil because you're taking away somebody's
Yes,
inherent.
your objective framework in terms of God. Why is it evil? What has this got to do with God? Why is it evil in the context of your religion?
So in the context of my religion, right, every human being is embedded with innate human worth. So the moment you take away that human worth, that is evil, right? It's against God. It's against the laws of God. However, I think
Finally, you got to the point. It's against God. That's what I was looking for. Evil is against God, which is literally what I said. You're giving me long, verbose explanations without getting to the point. You finally got to the point. It's against God. That is what you're trying to say. Okay, so is God all good?
Is God all good?
Thank you for the guess. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, does God want evil things to happen?
No.
Okay, and again, evil is something that's against God. That makes sense. That's consistent. God would not want something that's against him to occur. Okay, so do bad things happen? Do evil things? Evil things do happen. Okay, so if God is all good, then why do evil things happen? That's against him. If God is all good and he wants good to happen, why does evil things that are against God happen?
Well, because for something to be truly good, right, you have to have necessity. It is necessary that evil can be committed, right? So, for example,
Is
a good
free
act.
will argument? Are you
What's
just
that?
trying to prove free will?
Well, it's free will to a degree, yes. I was just explaining the concept of free will, but yes, free
I know
will.
what free will is. I know what free will is. I know what free will is. But yeah, okay. So basically, because we need to have the choice of good and bad. Okay, so let me ask you this: does God have free will?
Yes,
And God is all good.
correct.
So God could have made us with free will and all good, right?
No, because if you create a being with free will, right? Free will in itself, you have to be able to be free to select evil,
And
right?
so God could have made a world in which we always selected good, right? With our free will.
If God created a world in which we always could only select good, then
That's a
that would not
possible
be a
world, right?
free world. But it wouldn't be a free world
Why
because
would it not be free? Because we have
you
the
don't have
option.
the option to select evil, right? If it's a world where your
Listen, so
only
you're
choice.
confusing yourself. So you're confusing yourself. You're not understanding. We have the ability to pick bad, but we always chose to pick good. There is a world in which that's a possible world, right? Because you acknowledge that God always does good acts despite having the free will to do bad. So that's not impossible. So God could have made a world in which we always chose good despite having the ability to do bad. But of all the worlds he could have made, he chose this world in which we do bad acts despite being able to do good all the time. So why did he make that world?
So to create a world in which human beings could only do good is a world without
It's not that
free
we can
will.
only do good. You're misrepresenting my argument. You're strawmanning me. My point is that
Okay, so let me steel man your argument. So you're claiming that the reason that basically God could have created a world where everything is perfect and nothing bad ever happens and human beings only choose good, right?
yeah.
Correct. So in order to create human beings that only choose good, God has to create a human being that is already only predisposed for good, right? He can't create a being that is in the middle, predisposed to good or evil. He has to create all humans with a direct predisposition towards only choosing goodness, right?
I mean, and then, yeah, and I don't see what would be the issue with that. Wouldn't an
Well,
all
the
good
issue with
God
that
do
is
that?
if God creates beings that are already predispositioned to only choose good, then they're not in the middle So God did not create
And
these
even
things.
then, I don't even think that's the case. I think that even if God could have made us always choose good and have a predisposition to do good or evil in the middle, and God could have had a world in which we always chose good, is that a possibility?
I mean, anything is possible.
So I just asked, is the world in which we always choose good with our free will, even if the disposition is in the middle, a possibility?
Is it a possibility? I don't believe so, no.
Okay, so you're saying
I think that if we're split in the
Hold on
middle,
one second,
right?
my good boy.
Go
You
ahead.
just conceded. So you're saying that it's not God is not powerful enough to make a world in which we always choose good with our free will. He's too weak to do that.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm
Okay,
making
so
the
then
claim
why
that,
are you able to do that?
okay, so it's not, so an immovable object, right, can't be moved by a super movable force, right? So basically the claim that I'm making is that you cannot create a being. If you create a being that is in the middle, right, and he can either choose good or evil, he will not only always choose good. If God
Okay,
does
so
not,
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Does God have free will?
yes,
Does God have a disposition to do bad as well as good?
no.
Okay, so now you just contradicted yourself because free will is literally the ability to do bad or good. So
God
again,
has the ability to, right, but his nature in itself is goodness.
okay, so he doesn't have the ability to do bad?
Correct.
So that means he doesn't have free will.
Not like humans, correct, yes.
Okay, so you're saying God doesn't have free will.
Not like people. It's different.
No, it's the same thing. Free will is literally the ability to do good or bad. It's not complicated. You're confusing yourself, my dear boy. So again,
No.
I'll ask you, does God have the ability to do good and bad? Does he have free will?
So I reject the premise that God's free will is directly like humans' free will, because God is an absolute being, right? So if you create, let's say we create.
No. Free will is free will, okay? Either he has the ability to do good or bad or not. You're overcomplicating it. You're obfuscating just to escape the point. Either he has free will or he doesn't. It's very simple, okay? That's what you're not understanding. He either has the ability to do free will or he doesn't. What do you mean, not like humans? Is there a different free will for gods? You're making stuff up. That doesn't make sense. Free will is simply free will. You're overcomplicating this when it doesn't need to be. So go ahead and mute your microphone and explain to me how God doesn't have free will instead of just being verbose and not providing an explanation and doing so many red herrings. Everyone double tap the screen. Let's reach 30,000 likes. Double tap the screen. Also feel free to subscribe and check out my YouTube for my other videos. Instead of just being verbose, double tap the screen. Let's for my other videos.
I'm sorry about that.
Free will is free will. We've defined it as the ability to do good or bad, have the possibility to do good or bad. It's free will is free will. It doesn't change for humans or for God. It's the same thing. It's just obfuscating.
Well, I know it's not obfuscating. You can't claim that the reality for two absolutely different beings are exactly the same, right? Like, would you say, for example, that a bacteria, which is a living being, can do anything other than what it is already pre-programmed to do?
You're saying God pre-programmed us to do bad?
No, I'm saying that God's nature in itself is goodness. So if God is a being whose nature in itself is goodness.
Just listen. Okay, let me try and do this in a way that's more easily understandable because you seem to have trouble focusing. So let me help you out.
I'm understanding fine.
Okay, it's very simple. Okay.
Okay.
Let's take Jesus, for example. Is Jesus God?
Yes.
Jesus is God in the person, in the flesh, right?
Correct. He's part of the Trinity, yes.
So you can say that, Jesus was a human being on earth, right?
Correct.
Okay, so he's a human being like all of us, and Jesus did nothing wrong, right?
Correct.
Okay, so you admit that Jesus did nothing wrong, okay?
Yes.
Did Jesus have the ability to do wrong?
The ability to, yes.
Did Jesus have free will, or was he determined?
Jesus had free will, but he also had the nature of God in him. But go ahead. What point are you trying to make?
What do you define as free will?
So free will, right, as we know it, needs to be, let me try to articulate this properly. So in order to have free will, you need to be able to have clear conscience and mental capacity and be able to freely choose one thing or the other.
Okay, so does Jesus have the ability to do that? Does he have a clear conscience? Does he have free will, or
Yes, Jesus has free will, yes.
Okay, so would that also allow for the fact that he had the ability to either do good or bad? Would that also be fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so Jesus, let's say he walks up to a person, he has the ability to either hit them, which would be a bad thing, is that correct?
Correct.
Or he can give them food. Let's say they're a hungry person, that would be a good thing, right?
Right.
Okay, so he has free will. He has the ability to to make clear choices, good or bad. You understand that, right?
Right.
Okay, so essentially Jesus has free will.
Correct.
And Jesus always chose good. Is that correct?
Right.
And he's a human being as well.
Right.
Okay, so you've just said that it's a possibility for human beings to always choose good actions and have free will. So why wouldn't God make a world in which that was the case? Just
So
like
it's a possibility. To say it's a possibility, right, doesn't mean that it's going to happen every time. Now, if you were to ask me,
understanding, that's the clear part of the point. The fact is that God is powerful enough to make a world in which that could have happened. That's not logically contradictory. It's not like saying, can God move an immovable object? It's not like saying, can God draw a square circle? This is a logical thing that works that God could have done that he chose not to. And that's why he is evil. And and this is the problem of evil. And the fact that he chose not to do the all good thing means he's not all good or he's not powerful enough to do it. That is
okay, so two things, right? First of all, in order to claim that God is evil, right, you need to steal that from God's framework of morality. Because if morality is subjective, you can't claim God is evil or does evil, because your morality is subjective.
all good God will make a world
But
in which
when, but let me just answer your other question real quick. That the other claim that you made that you said was wrong that I was claiming. So if God was to create that world, which you're saying, and we agreed that it is possible for God to create, God would have to choose and select specific beings like Jesus, or specific beings that have a predisposition to select only good, like Jesus, or like good
You just said
beings.
Jesus had free will.
Right, he had free will, of course. I'm agreeing free will. But you need to still have a being with a predisposition for good.
No, you don't.
Yes.
Sir. You don't.
So if we're talking about probability,
No, you
and
don't,
somebody's
sir.
free will is divided in the middle.
Just listen. Just listen. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, but just listen. God could have made us choose always.
I don't know how to use TikTok too well, my bad.
Okay, is there a possible universe, a possible world that God was powerful enough to make in that we always chose good with our free will? That's a possibility, right? As human beings, we can always choose good.
No, as human beings, if we have true free will, right, we will not always only choose good.
Okay, so now you're just not, because you already acknowledged that God has free will yet always chooses good. Jesus has free will and always chooses good. So why isn't it possible for him to make us also have free will and always choose good?
Okay, so first of all, the reason why I say God has free will and he always will choose good and can only choose good is because the nature of God is different than the nature of people, right?
Hold on 1 second. You just said you're confusing yourself. You just said he will always choose good, and then you said he can only choose good. If that's the case, that means he's predetermined to only be able to choose good. And in that case, he either doesn't have free will, and if he doesn't have free will, then he's not all powerful, because an all powerful being would not be constrained by other things like determinism to only choose certain actions. An all powerful God would have the ability to do any action he wanted.
All right, so let's create a hypothetical then, right? Which is what we're talking about, since you don't believe in God, right?
Sure.
Okay, so in this hypothetical, we create a being, and that being is only good, right? The nature of that being is goodness, right? He has nothing within himself other than goodness. Can that being do anything else other than goodness? Other than good things?
The point is that does it have the ability to do anything other than goodness?
Well, if something has the power,
why did
right?
God
If
make
something
us?
has If something has the power to do anything other than
then
good,
you're saying God
doesn't
doesn't have free will.
necessarily mean they have the ability to,
You're
right?
saying God doesn't have free will then? Is that what you're saying? Because he's predisposed to do good, so he doesn't have the ability to freely choose. He's basically like a robot. He's determined to always choose certain actions. He doesn't have the ability to choose other actions. And
So the concept of free will that we're talking about does not apply to God, because God is an absolute being within itself.
where you're running from the point, you're just saying words. It's a word salad. You're saying the concept.
It's not a word salad. You're equivalating.
Hold on 1 second, my dear boy. Just relax 1 second, my dear boy. Free will is free will. If he's all powerful, he should have the ability to choose bad. But if he always chooses good, then again, you acknowledge that there's a world in which we can always choose good with our free will. If he chose not to make that world where there's bad over good, then he's not an all-good God, because an all-good God would only choose a world in which we always chose good. And that's a possible world. That's not a contradiction. Free will doesn't mean you have to choose bad. You can have free will and only choose good, as you just conceded. So now you're not making sense. And it shows a clear demonstrable flaw in your position. Everyone double tap the screen. I want to reach 30,000 likes. I'm going to start adding many more people once we reach 30,000 likes. So do double tap the screen, everybody. Double tap the screen. Let's reach 30,000 likes. I'm going to start adding some more people in soon. I'm only going to go for like a bit longer with this, because I'm going to give you one last... I'm going to try again with you. I'm going to try my best with you.
But we try to switch it up a little bit then, since you're talking about evil, right? So what do you consider evil as subjective, right?
Sir, what do you mean switch it up? Why are you doing a red herring? You're running away from the conversation. We already agreed that it's an internal critique, so evil would be anything that's against God. And badness.
Right, but you're using my worldview. So can we use your worldview?
That's what internal critique is.
Right, so can we internally critique your worldview? Because this whole time we've only been internally critiquing my worldview. Can we switch it up and internally critique your worldview as well?
Sure. The problem of evil is an internal critique. It's demonstrating the flaw in your position and why it's irrational and it's contradictory and why it cannot be feasible. That's the
right.
whole point.
So let's use the problem of evil in your worldview.
There is no problem with evil in my Bible because I don't believe in God. That's what's an internal critique.
So you don't believe in evil.
Yeah, you're not objectively, no. And even you don't
believe that all the atrocities committed against children, against other people, people being taken as slaves.
By the way.
That's
all the other arguments, so you're running to this. But it's fine if you can see there.
No, it's the same.
You said you admitted that you would like choose to like not still believe if I could show you why you shouldn't, right?
I didn't say that. Somebody else did. But yes, I'm willing to not believe. No, you're good, brother. That was the guy behind you. It was pretty quick. So I believe why you would think that. But yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely open-minded to believing in something if you were to convince me. I just don't agree with the premise that free will, the concept that we understand as free will, is the same as God. Like, for example, free will can be taken away from somebody easily, right? So if I was to put somebody in a cage and I was to restrain them completely, I'm taking away their free will to do a bunch of things, right?
Their ability to do a bunch of things, not necessarily their free will, but their ability.
Well, what do you mean not their free will? I'm taking away their free will to do anything they want. They're not allowed.
But sure, what's your point here?
So my point here is that free will needs to be given by another being. Right,
free will. Not necessarily. Again, you have to prove that other being exists, and I already showed you a demonstrable flaw. But I mean, if you don't want to concede, which I understand is difficult to do, we can try another argument, perhaps.
All right. Well, let's talk. If we're going to talk about another argument, then let's do the same concept of evil in your worldview. So you don't believe evil at all. You believe it's subjective, correct? Yes. Why do you believe? Do you believe it's more probable or less probable that God exists?
Absolutely improbable.
Improbable. Do you believe it's possible?
Pardon?
Do you believe it's possible?
Not in the way you're characterizing it, not the Christian God, at least. No. If I define this pen as God, then yes, God exists, but not the God you're describing.
Right, but not a supernatural being that's outside of space, time, and matter, right?
What does that even mean to be outside of space, time, and matter? Can you think of anything that's outside of space, time, and matter? What does that look like? How can we observe that thing?
Well, anything. Well, exactly. Anything outside of the frame. Well, you would agree with me that for a being.
Hold on 1 second. If it's outside of space, time, and matter, you'd have no evidence of it, correct?
Correct.
So
To a
then,
degree.
how on earth
Not exactly no evidence, right? You'd have signs.
you'd have what? Signs.
Yes, you still have some evidence. For
If you have
example,
signs, then it is by definition going to be in space, because if it's showing you signs and you're in space, then that thing must be in space to do those signs, correct? It will be a materialist view. It would literally be in space.
not necessarily. For example, how do you believe the world was created? For example,
I don't know.
you don't know, so you don't believe in the Big Bang. You don't believe in.
Sir, the Big Bang doesn't say how the world was created. The Big Bang is simply describing a phenomenon at a point in time where the universe was infinitely dense in a singularity and expanded. That's it. We don't know what came before, even if there was a before. We don't even know what the right questions are to ask. We just don't know. That's it.
Right, but for there to be anything, right? Nothing cannot come from nothing. Correct.
He said nothing cannot come from nothing. What even is nothing? I don't know what nothing is.
The absence of anything.
Okay, so you're saying nothing cannot come from nothing? Sure. What's your point?
So my point is, if at one point,
Something can't come from nothing?
right, correct. Sorry, English. English is my second language. I apologize if sometimes I get my words a little mixed up. Basically, the point I'm trying to make here is, although for a being to create the universe, or for anything to have created the universe, because the universe does have a beginning. You agree with that, right?
I don't necessarily agree with that. It could have always been here, and
the majority of the scientific field believes that the world had a beginning, right? Because everything degrades with time.
not necessarily at all. We don't
Well,
know.
I'm just saying the majority. It's widely accepted that the universe did have a
I don't
beginning.
think that's true amongst physicists. The point is that we don't know whether it had a beginning. It could have always been here. It could have expanded.
Well, that was a long time ago. They believed that the universe could have always been here. The most accepted theory of the world's beginning today is the Big Bang theory.
So the Big Bang theory does not describe how the world began. It literally describes the phenomenon of how the universe came to be, but we don't know what could have been before.
Well, what's the difference between the universe began and the universe became to be?
As in the universe as we see it, but we don't know how it came before. We don't know what that was before, what caused it. There could have been a before, there may not even have been a before, we just don't know.
And is there any way we can know?
That's a good question that you'd probably want to ask a physicist. And right now, not the furthest back we can go in time to the events occurred is the Big Bang based on a redshift of galaxies, and that we see it moving away. So at some point in history, must have all been together in some very small, dense pocket. But I don't know, and we'll see in the future. But as of right now, we just have no evidence of anything before. We don't know what it could have been. We don't know whether it was the start. There's just so many questions we don't know how to answer.
Right. So for anything to have created something, he needs to be outside of that thing. Right. So God to have created
The issue is that
time and matter. He cannot be a part of space, time, and matter. You understand that?
There's two issues with that. Number one, you said outside of that thing. In terms of the universe, I don't know what it would look like to be outside of the universe.
Well, for example, for me to create a computer system or a game, right?
So you
there
can't
is
compare
nothing.
those things because that's within our universe. You're talking about something outside of the universe. What does it look like to
Within
be
our
outside?
universe, right? But it'd be impossible for anything within the computer, within the universe of a computer.
The computer analogy doesn't work.
Right?
Hold on one second, my dear boy. Just listen. The computer analogy doesn't work. We don't know what it means to be outside of the universe. Number two, you can't create something without time. And this is another argument against God, is that the problem of creation itself. It's impossible to create something without time, because to create something requires time in which it wasn't there, and then it was there, and then a time in which you created it. It literally requires time. And in fact, the Bible would also agree with me. God saying he made the world on the first day, second day. Days literally require time. Days are points of time which we're talking about. So you're not even making sense yourself.
Well, no. So when the Bible says God created the earth, doesn't mean it's not the same thing as him creating the entire universe. And it's using human language in order to explain to us so we can understand how it was created.
So what you're saying is you don't even understand it then. If you can't use the only evidence or words we have from the Bible, then
Well, I do use the Bible, the words we have from the
Where in
Bible.
the Bible does it support that God's outside of space and time? Where does it support that in the
It's
Bible?
logical, right? The only way for God to have created.
Sir, I asked you, where in the Bible does it support that? Because I have evidence that would indicate that's not the case, that he's not outside of space or time. Space.
Okay, so what's the evidence
Hold on
that,
a second,
that
my
he's
dear.
outside of it then?
Pardon?
So what evidence do you have that he's only within the realm of space, time, and matter?
Okay, number one, he clearly comes to the world, through the physical flesh as Jesus, and
No. I'm talking about God, the Trinity, right? In the beginning. In the
exactly,
beginning.
God the Father.
Right.
He does affect the world. He does come through lightning. He lighted a bush. He speaks to people. He clearly is operating within the physical realm of the universe. We have no
Right,
evidence.
but he can operate both within the physical realm and outside of it, right?
Where's your evidence? Where in the scripture is there a single shred of evidence that says he's outside of the universe? Do you have anything that would indicate that?
Well, to be logically consistent, he needs to be outside of the universe.
Yeah, but you have no evidence of that, so you're just presupposing it. I have evidence that would indicate he's inside of it, and what's more than that, again, with time, God.
Well, you would have evidence that he's inside of it, but you don't have evidence that he's only inside of it.
And you have no evidence he's outside. You're just presupposing
Well,
it.
I do. Is logic not an evidence?
No, you can't just claim it as logic without any evidence. You have any scripture to support what you're saying, or you're just presupposing that about God.
Well, it's not a presupposition.
What does it look like to be outside of the universe, outside of space and timeless? What does that look like? What would that be? Spaceless, timeless. How would that even exist? You're describing a non-existent thing. What even does that mean?
No, I'm claiming something that doesn't exist within space, time, and matter. And us being beings that are within space, time, and matter, we can't. Just the fact that we cannot understand what it would be like to be outside.
You don't understand what you're saying. So you're telling me is you don't understand what you're saying, because you can't make claims about something you don't understand. You understand that, right?
What do you mean by I don't understand? I'm trying to explain to you. Do you not understand what I was explaining?
Hold on 1 second, my dear boy. You just said you can't understand it, right?
No, I'm saying human beings can't understand what it is to be outside of space, time, and matter.
Okay, so are you a human being? Are you a human being?
I'm a human being, yes.
So that means you can't understand what it means to be outside of space, time, and matter.
Correct.
So you don't even know what you're saying. You don't understand what you're saying. You're speaking nonsense. You're being verbose.
What do you mean? I'm making the claim that for a being to create. Wait a second. I'm trying to make my claim.
You're claiming stuff that you don't even understand. You're making all these claims about God, and you don't even understand what that means. You're describing something that's non-existent. You're not making sense.
So
very simple. All right, man.